People with bipolar often find themselves faced with a difficult dilemma. In times of crisis, when they start to become manic or depressed, they may find themselves drawn towards behaviours which could cause them personal harm. For somebody who's becoming manic, this could look like spending excessive amounts of money, using drugs, or getting into dangerous situations. In depressive or mixed episodes, this could mean they start to self-harm or feel very suicidal. At this point, they need professional help. This could look like admission to a specialist hospital or treatment with medication. But at the same time, it's very unlikely that the person themselves will recognise the need for professional help. They may be able to convince professionals that they don't need the help, or professionals may believe that at the early stage in a crisis, the risk is not yet severe enough to enforce treatment if the person says that they don't want it. Once the episode becomes even more severe and behaviours spiraled out of control, treatment may then be enforced, but not before serious damage has already been done. This is a pattern which repeats itself predictably in future episodes. We are hoping that a type of contract or agreement called a self-binding directive would allow somebody with bipolar to bind themselves to treatment in the early stages of a crisis for future episodes. This might help prevent some of the harm and interrupt this damaging cycle.
To explain more about what we're describing, I'd like to talk about the case of someone I'll call P. P is a 48-year-old man with bipolar who has requested this type of self-binding directive. Over the years, he's had more than 20 manic episodes, and these have caused him serious personal damage. For P, the signs that he's becoming unwell and losing control are very distinct. He starts giving away his property. After one episode, he recovered to find that his flat had been stripped of all his belongings, even his bed and his car were gone. He can get himself into dangerous situations and start using hard drugs. He's desperate to stop this happening. P explains that he's not in control of his decision-making at this point. He says, when you're high, you're not in control of your faculties fully. You don't make the right decisions. You cross the bridge in your mind. You cross the bridge where you're no longer rational. At these times, those involved in P's care, such as his daughters, clearly recognise that he needs treatment in hospital. But P himself is unwilling to recognise the need for treatment, and he's able to convince the medical team that he's still in control. In P's own words, because I can present myself and be good, they'll say that I'm okay to go. What happens is that instead of them coming and getting me at the beginning, they'll leave me on the street to get worse and worse and worse and worse. In P's case, it's at this early point that he's crossed the bridge and needs to have treatment enforced, even if he's unwilling at the time, before the serious damage has been done. Health professionals might think that he doesn't reach this threshold till a later stage. For P though, this is too late.
What we're proposing is that a person with bipolar writes a document, a self-binding directive, in collaboration with health professionals and with help from family or friends when appropriate. This document would describe what mania or depression look like for them. Plus, it would contain details of risky behaviours that have happened in the past when they've gone without treatment at an early point. They can then suggest what type of treatments have worked for them in the past. Things like at what point they need admission to hospital or intensive treatment at home, the things they're likely to say to try to suggest that they don't need help at this point, and the point at which they feel they lose the capacity to make their own decisions about treatment or admission to hospital. What kind of treatments have worked for them in the past, and what other arrangements might need to be taken care of should they be unwell. Things like childcare or pet care. During a crisis, health professionals and family or friends could use this document, the self-binding directive, to make sure that what happens is in keeping with the person's wishes when they are their well selves. It could provide vital information to professionals making medical and legal assessments under the Mental Health Act or the Mental Capacity Act. This might get round the problem that during crises in the past, the person may have been able to convince professionals who may not have met them before that they don't need help. We hope that a self-binding directive would allow people with bipolar to use their individual knowledge and experience of their illness to help guide future treatment and avoid some of the harm that this condition can bring.